you're like me and you're bullish on Cosmos in 2023, then let me warn you that staking ATOL is just not enough. The truth is that a lot of people falsely believe that ATOL equals Cosmos, while in reality, ATOL equals Cosmos Hub, and the Cosmos Hub is just a sovereign, competitive layer 1 in the Cosmos ecosystem. That's why in today's video, I want to explain to you basically how Cosmos works and share with you my honest opinions about ATOL, especially long term. And if you're excited about that and you appreciate my Cosmos-centric content here on this YouTube channel, then make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We just crossed 30,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. Hit the like button and make sure that you watch the entire video. First of all, disclaimer, I actually do own a lot of ATOL. It's the biggest position in my portfolio, and with my staking provider Cryptocito, where you can delegate your atoms to, we're actually ranked 45 with over 1 million atoms under delegation. So you could either say I'm biased, or you can also say I do have skin in the game. That said, I think first of all, we have to set the field here. We have to understand how Cosmos works before we can assess the potential of the Cosmos Hub and the ATOL coin long term. Well, Cosmos is a network of sovereign layer 1 blockchains. It's the one ecosystem that, in my opinion, represents best the AppChain thesis. What is the AppChain thesis? The AppChain thesis is basically the counterpart to the Fed protocol thesis. Fed protocols such as Ethereum, Solana, Cardano are actually believing that there should be a base layer, a layer 1, and every application should be built on top of it, right? So you do have this Fed layer that accrues all the value, that is there to provide a security for all the applications that can be built as smart contracts or even as shared security zones, sidechains, you name it, on top of it or around it, but it all accrues back to this layer 1. The upside, obviously, is that you have a highly secure and valuable main layer where there's also clear value accrual for the native coin of that main layer, right? For example, on Ethereum, you have the coin ETH that is accruing all the value, right? On Solana, you have the Sol coin that is accruing all the value, and the list goes on. Now, the counterpart to that is the AppChain thesis. In the AppChain thesis, you don't have one layer which everything else is built on top of. Instead, you have multiple independent sovereign layers, and these layers are all interconnected to each other through what's called IBC, the Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol. If the Cosmos Hub is not a Fed protocol, what's the purpose of it then, right? What is the value accrual? What is the positioning? And what is the whole point of the Cosmos Hub? Now, the Cosmos Hub is obviously the longest, oldest, and most iconic chain in Cosmos. It's the chain that bootstrapped communities such as Osmosis, such as Juno network, right? It's the one that started it all, right? It's the mother of all chains in Cosmos. However, on a technical layer, the value accrual for ATOL is not connected to the success of IBC chains. And we have seen now over the past 2 years, ever since IBC went live, that other chains, such as Osmosis, are actually gaining a lot more traction when it comes to IBC adoption, right? You also see a lot of innovation happening on chains like Juno, where mesh security is being tested out, and you see also other chains and big competitors coming in, such as Celestia, for example, that might take away a lot of the market shares from the Cosmos Hub and ATOL. Now, if we say that up until now, the Cosmos Hub's purpose has been to bootstrap the Cosmos ecosystem and to bootstrap the IBC economy and technology by also stress testing the Cosmos SDK, tournament, and IBC itself, the big question is now, what is the next step for the Cosmos Hub? What's the positioning long term? And there has actually been an attempt in October where a couple of core contributors that have been around for many years, such as Jack Sempolin, Zaki Manian, Sam Hart, they all came together and wrote a proposal for ATOL 2.0. That proposal, however, was rejected by on-chain community governance. Also, Jae Kwon, the original inventor of Tendermint, was super active at the time and campaigned heavily against Atom 2.0, right? So it was a quite controversial time. In my opinion, the Atom 2.0 proposal was eventually a little bit too bold, but it was a great attempt to make Atom relevant again, right? Because from a product level and technical level, Atom so far does not have a killer application. What the proposal did, however, is it started the conversations, it started the debates again, right? Like, what should we do with the hub? Who should be working on it? How should funding work, right? Because up until now, the ICF, the Interchain Foundation, was supposed to be leading the development on a Cosmos hub. However, they do have some internal issues. As far as I understand, to be honest, personally, I don't even know who is actually running the ICF. I don't know how the ICF works, but the ICF is not a major or core contributor at this point, as of my understanding, right? Now, after Atom 2.0 was downvoted, some of the proposers actually stepped back a little bit and also rethought about what they want to do, how Atom should continue, and what their role should be, right? So, for example, Zeki Manian, Jack Sempolin, Sam Hart, I think they kind of like took a little step back and said, okay, we had these bold ideas. I wish they went through. Now we get a lot of headwind, so we'll leave it up to someone else to now take the steering wheel and decide and come up with some good ideas to bring the Cosmos Hub forward. One of these guys, however, that has been extremely passionate and committed to contribute to the future of the Cosmos Hub has been Youssef Arani. And Youssef is a very, very passionate and dedicated cosmonaut that basically has just been a community member and then came up with the idea to say, hey, Atom 2.0 failed, but let's take some of the parts and go back to governance and propose some of these ideas step by step. And that's exactly the outcome of Proposal 95, the Atom Accelerator. The Atom Accelerator is basically a decentralized grants program which is managed by core cosmonauts that have been so far independent from the entire development of the Cosmos Hub until this point, right? You do have core cosmonauts such as Better Future, Luke Saunders, Nikki from Cosmos Station, Dylan from Imperator, Rena from Citadel 1, and Xavier Megan with the CIO over at Chorus 1. So you have a lot of these experienced people that are running this program. There's also obviously an oversight committee. I'm not going to get into details how that works. You can read Proposal 95 to better understand. And the purpose of that decentralized grants program is to strengthen the Atom Economic Zone, which basically means to also revamp Atom tokenomics. It's to onboard new consumer chains via interchain security, which we're going to be talking about in a second, fund public good development for the Cosmos ecosystem, right? Now, what's also important to understand, though, however, is that, sure, the Atom Accelerator can fund some of these developments, but if there's a product that will be developed, it still has to go back to on-chain governance in order to be actually implemented, right? In order for the software, for the code to actually be implemented onto the Cosmos Hub. And on a recent interview with Jack Sempolin, I also learned that there's now independent teams picking up some of the ideas of, for example, the interchain scheduler or the allocator. Now, these ideas are independently being picked up, and I think some of them might even come back as consumer chains, right? Now, in my opinion, it has been essential that Proposal 95 passed for the future sustainability of the Cosmos Hub. Because in my opinion, the biggest danger for the Cosmos Hub is simply that it becomes obsolete. So I'm very much in favor of that, and I'm looking forward to see some of the developments, some of the research that comes out of Proposal 95 of the Atom Accelerator DAO. Obviously, we now have to trust the team, the grants team, that they're going to do a good job. But they've been doing a good job over the years, right, in their respective fields of work. So I'm very optimistic, and time will tell, right, if they can deliver upon the promises. The total size of the fund is actually 588,000 atoms, which is roughly 7 to 8 million US dollars. And I think that's a good start from which they can fund some of the basics to also achieve results, and then in the future go back to governance and request more funding. Now, it's also important to understand that subsequent to the failure of Atom 2.0, there was immediately a proposal 88, by simply staking to increase the community tax rate, which basically means that with every block, every emission of new atoms, the community treasury, the community pool, would get a portion of these new emissions to build up their treasury. Up until Proposal 88, that rate has been 2% of all the emissions, and it has then been increased to 10%, right? So the community is now earning 10% of the inflation rate, which is currently at 11 or 12%, and that goes directly into the treasury to fund future development of the Cosmos Hub. Now, let's talk about Atom's killer application, interchain security. Interchain security is a highly anticipated feature that will come to the Cosmos Hub as soon as February or March, and it will bring to life a shared security model for the Cosmos Hub, which would then act as a source of security for consumer chains that are built on top of the Cosmos Hub. We do have the first confirmed consumer chains to go live. The very first one will actually be Neutron, which I'm really excited about, which also then changes the game for Atom tokenomics, but we're going to talk about this deeper in a second. But that means that Atom stakers, independent from the inflation of new atoms or from the emission of new atoms, would earn rewards from the fees, the usage fees or transaction fees, or from the emissions of consumer chains running on top of it, right? So you do have an additional revenue source for Atom stakers and validators that will also defeat the poor tokenomics of Atom as we have it right now. Why do I say it's poor tokenomics? Well, Atom has a quite high inflation rate. In fact, it has a dynamic inflation rate between 7 and 20% depending on the bonded ratio, which means how many atoms are staked. The target ratio is 2/3, 66.6%. If it's below that, inflation will go up to incentivize staking. If it's above 66%, inflation will hit a floor of 7%. Currently, we have a bonded ratio of 62.5% and an inflation rate of 12%, which is quite high, right? That means staking rewards are also high, currently 22%. The future, however, which was also outlined and proposed in the Atom 2.0 paper, envisions that Atom actually becomes nearly deflationary, right? And personally, I think that's actually an obvious shot, right? If you look at Ethereum, for example, Ethereum up until EIP 1559 also was quite inflationary. There was a lot of concerns for the Bitcoin community around Ethereum's unlimited inflation. But with EIP 1559, the switch to proof of work and all these kind of things, ETH tokenomics have been strengthened quite a lot. And ETH is now moving towards becoming ultra sound money. So in my opinion, we just have to look at what Ethereum did, right? And take over some of these ideas to be implemented and adjusted, refined for Atom as the interchain service provider in the Cosmos ecosystem. That way, we could also propose, for example, to lower the inflation rate, so you still have a security budget, but at the same time, you also burn atoms and have it more appealing as a form of money in Cosmos. Also, very important to understand, interchain security still has to go through on-chain governance, right? So first of all, the module has to pass, and then second, Neutron has to make an on-chain proposal to implement and use shared security, and they have to come up with a business plan that's appealing enough for Atom validators and Atom delegators. Now, in my opinion, interchain security is the killer application for the Cosmos Hub and inaugurates a new era, which I would call Atom as an interchain service provider, right? And interchain security can just be the first step to it. There's also other unexplored or underexplored territories, such as Atom as an IBC terminal, right? Those kind of things sound very interesting, and I think there needs to go a lot of research in it, maybe through the Atom Accelerator DAO, to figure out how that would work. Now, the big question is, after all what I've said, what is the conclusion here? What is the outlook for 2023? And what is the actual real and honest potential for Atom? Even though it's true that Atom on the technical and product level is completely detached from the success of other chains in Cosmos, such as Osmosis, such as Juno, right? Even though that's the case, I still believe that Atom will be considered and perceived as a representation of Cosmos, just because it has the highest brand recognition, the most liquidity, and simply because it has Cosmos in the name, right? So a lot of people will believe that, and for that reason, it's kind of a voluntary shelling point, or just kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy that Atom will go up in value if we also see another leg up or bull run in crypto. Now, on the product level, there is a lot of innovation that's coming, but even though it's a little bit chaotic and quite decentralized, which is a feature and a bug at the same time, right? Because decentralized is always good, but it also means that innovation goes slower and the competition is not sleeping, right? But I talked about this in another video where I compared Avalanche to Polkadot and Cosmos. You should check that video out, by the way. But even though that's the case, it still works, right? And innovation is coming, interchain security is coming. Also with the Atom Accelerator DAO, I think it's very promising. Research that can come out of this, and also products that can launch as consumer chains, because that DAO is specifically focused on Atom only, right? Just think if there was a business development team that just finalized a $7 million fundraiser to develop the Cosmos Hub from a business perspective, right? Which is urgently needed for the Cosmos Hub. Now, my final conclusion, therefore, is that the Cosmos Hub has very strong upside potential to compete with the ADAs, with Solana, and with Polkadot, but there's still a long way to go. I still firmly believe that Atom will enter the top 10 cryptocurrencies this year, especially if ICS gains traction, for example, with Neutron, or even the native asset issuance chain called Noble. But it will be a long way to go, and there's a lot of challenges along the way, which is why I believe it's great to be very bullish on Atom, but if you want to have exposure to Cosmos and you want to bet big on Cosmos, holding Atom is just not enough. You have to look into Osmosis. You have to look at mapofzones.com, where you see all the active chains in Cosmos. I'll leave you guys with that. Maybe in the future I can also make more videos about specific topics around Atom itself, if that's what you're interested in. I hope you learned something. Stay safe, guys. Be good, and I'll see you in the next one.